Hello! Will you join us today on quite the project? Suppose I'll turn that down. There we go. Had the welder running. Just finished doing a couple zaps. We got to do more, but so EXPs. Well, their mufflers have been obsolete for a while now. The Escort ones have been available, and sometimes they come up. But the EXP ones are special because they're supposed to have dual outlets. Maybe I can grab one here. My apologies, I don't have one handy. But yeah, the Escort ones and the EXP ones are identical, except for the Escort ones, they'll just have a single outlet out of the muffler. I believe it will look more like this, where they have an outlet on one of the two sides, but and then it comes out just through straight pipe. Sometimes they have a downturn, whatever. That's essentially it. But on EXPs, there is a second one. And the GTs don't seem to be like this. Only EXPs and LN7s. But they'll have a second pipe here. And what happens is they both come out. They both dip down a little bit. And while they're dipping down, they both come in towards each other. So then you have two narrow ones here. You can kind of imagine they both come out a little, then down and together, and then they come out as one piece. I think I have that right. It's either down and together or up and together. Regardless, it doesn't really matter because you can flip it over, and if it's too low, you can flip it over. You make it high, or vice versa if it's too high. But on the other end, I believe it's supposed to be an offset. So if we were looking at an Escort exhaust, there'd be an inlet here instead of in the center, and then an outlet down in that one corner. If it was an EXP, there would be the two outlets like we had discussed. So that hasn't been available for quite some time. But there are generics that you can put into place so long as you measure them up and they kind of fit the space. This is a Thrush unit. This should be the part number for you. And I will grab the box where they actually include the measurements, which is superb. Because sometimes you can actually find these at like Fleet Farms, and some of them won't be Thrush, for say, but some of them will be boxed quite similar to this, even if it's like a Cherry Bomb or something, for instance. Sometimes they're just no-name generics. Anywho, it'll list the dimensions here. What we want is, well, I think these cars came with like a 1 3/4 out, 1 3/4 inch pipe. So we're going to settle for 2 inches. I think that's going to be just fine, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But this is a good dimension that will fit your car. But there is a little bit involved. You can see that because it's not a factory unit, there's no hangers attached, and because you're dealing with a car that doesn't have a factory exhaust available either, it doesn't, I'm sorry, pretty much no muffler you're going to find is going to have the hangers where you need them. So thing to do is you buy blank ones here, whether you want straights or elbows. I prefer these elbow ones because then I can fight it in and then fight it back out pretty easy versus straight ones where you're just tugging and pulling on a long smooth shaft. But even if you need to make them straight or add a crook to them, you can do what I did here. This was just a pair of straights, and what I did is I cut in at an angle here, cut it in an angle here, and then I slowly bent it from straight to perpendicular, and then once I was happy with the angle, I welded the difference. So now it's permanently at an angle like this. But the reason why, I'll show you here. Get down on our backs and pray to the EXP gods. Ouch. So this is what we're working with underneath the car. You can see on mine, for instance, again, your results will vary, but someone had cut mine off way down there, which is excessive. The good news is I got all the room in the world for an exhaust system here. I got this giant cavity. It measures out at like 24 inches long, and then yeah, you have room from the spare tire all the way until this inner fender well or your rear tire, depending on which one is further in or how far down you go. Anywho, you got something like 15 inches across, so you actually have a pretty big space for whatever the heck you need or can find or whatever. Anywho, all you have to do is just simply find a muffler that fits this massive cavity, and then add in sections of pipe for the difference, and then add whatever tip you desire on the end. So we got this big guy here. Move a couple more things around. I'm hoping to hang it up here as such. Oh, other way around. Pardon the poor camera work. Doing this on the fly and on the back. We will mount it like so, where we have the middle outlet pointed to the back, and then that offset outlet or inlet. This is a reversible muffler. I should make that clear now. This can go either direction. Some mufflers are directional, where you can only have an inlet on one side, outlet on the other, but this one you can do either with. But we're going to move the offset so it goes closer to that pipe from the rest of the car. But we're hoping to hang it right about here. I'll have a few inches back, but this is as far as I can reach. And then I will have my angle hanger here. It'll go into this, geez, it's so dark you can barely see it. There's a rubber bushing hanger up there, and then it'll hang onto the top of this outlet pipe. And then we'll just connect a little bit of pipe for the difference, connecting this muffler to the rest of our system. And the best way to do that is, no, not with a flex pipe. Don't put yourself through that agony. They're not as flexible as the name would suggest. And because it's so thin to be able to move around, they rust very quick, and they rust pinholes very quick. They'll get very holy very fast. It's no bueno. But we can get a section of pipe like this. If you want, you can hop online and you actually get a big box of riffraff pieces. They're all just miscellaneous exhaust pieces. Mandrel bend is preferred. That way there's no pinching like the stock unit has. We'll zoom in so you can see. Oh, sorry. Here we go. So at each of these bends, there's a whole bunch of ribs there. That's because they're stretching and then compressing the metal whenever they bend it, versus these, they actually insert some solid steel on the inside as they bend it, and that's how this remains relatively perfect inside and outside diameters to a degree. Anywho, I find the best thing to do is you get, if you don't need a large piece, you could say just buy a U piece like this. Something like this is fantastic, because now I know that I have to go from this height up here down to this height down here, plus I also have to travel a little bit of left and right. So what we can do is we can stick this to the top, and then we'll cut it somewhere around here where my thumb is. Now what we cut off, we'll flip around so that we can make an S pipe of any size we want out of this one chunk. So it'll work pretty good. All I have to do is just a couple cuts. You can get pretty picky with the cutting. Luckily, you only need to do 3 joints of welding. One where this meets the muffler, one where this meets the rest of the exhaust, and then one wherever the 2 halves end up joining. So it's all crazy easy. As far as diameters go, yep, like I said, the stock is something like 1 3/4, where it's just under 2 inch, because this is 2-inch pipe. And it pretty much slips right onto the stock pipe. Get all the way down in here. I'll show it here. There's supposed to be an up curve here, and someone had cut through it. So the pipe is oblong top to bottom. It's more oval than it should be. But this would just slip right over it Maybe the stock system is 2-inch. Anywho, regardless, if you order a 2-inch pipe, you're going to be in the clear. So I have to trim that back some, just so that it's not egg shaped. We'll cut it back so that it's perfectly round, like the mating side of this. And then I have to come up with a length to fit the difference between my muffler and this guy. So that'll be the next step, and I'll have a video update after that, so just hold on a minute. And then just like that, it's kind of done. So, yep, welded the muffler to the hanger, or the rearmost hanger. There's no hangers further back than that. And then we did weld up a little S-turn there. Welded that. Actually, it had slipped into our muffler. So this Thrush muffler, the inside diameter must be 2 inches, because if it's perfectly around the 2-inch pipe that I had picked up, super snug. So now I just need to get a 2-inch clamp for this. I was prepared to weld it on, but being it slips in perfect, we're just going to clamp that. That way we can remove the muffler at any time. Otherwise, because the mount for the muffler is on the left, but the mount for the S-turn way up front is on the right. So otherwise, if I were to try to remove this exhaust system or any of the components, I'd have to grab it from way up front. Hopefully I can get it dismounted from the frontmost mount, and then grab it and give it a twist to the driver's side, and hopefully that'll kick the muffler's mount out, to the right, and then the S-turn out to the left. But that's less than ideal, so we're just going to clamp that instead, since I have that ability. But here's what we're doing for tips. I picked these up online on Amazon. They're, I believe, 2.5. Maybe it's like, well, let's just see here. Yeah, it's 2.5. But we will put some sort of adapter on there, even if it's something real big and meaty, like some real thick galvanized pipe, something like that. Find something that can go around that to get us up to the 2.5 inches, and then we'll be able to get away with this. So then, boom, more or less almost stock looking EXP system. It's a lot better than just the single outlet raw steel. I look silly, but the shotgun tip thing, it kind of looked like that from the factory. Obviously they weren't 2.5-inch circles, but they were like 1 3/4, maybe 2-inch little outlets that were kind of tight like that. But yeah, so I'll put links for all of these in the description. That way you can get a hold of some pipe. You can see this is what's left of that U piece I had. I ended up having to transfer, like when I had lined up the, let's pretend this is muffler and this is the rest of the exhaust system. They were only out of line, like right about here. So of my whole U piece, I ended up cutting a 45-degree angle out of one, and then I flipped it around, so that way between a 45 angle of the one, 45 of the angle, or 45 of the other, they were able to do actually fairly smooth S pattern. Because where my exhaust was cut and where I wanted to hang the muffler, the distance I had to travel was only slightly more than the height of the pipe. So this is how much I have left over just from that U piece. And now I have these for another EXP. Because I do have a few others that have been chopped elsewhere, so I can use these piece areas in. I can also use these for headers that people have cut up and mangled. Same with the muffler area that people cut up and mangled. And catalytic converters. If I have enough straight pipe, I can bypass a cat. Especially since a lot of these 82s, pretty much any that have the cast exhaust manifold instead of the tubular header, the catalytic converter actually does a very hard S and then goes diagonal before it goes straight again. It's like Ford didn't really know how to fit this rectangular oval shaped catalytic inside a straight line, so they just canted it in there the best they could. So for whatever reason on those cast manifold ones, they got to do this weird question mark looking thing. The tubular cars, I know they had a different catalytic converter shape because the exhaust flange where the manifold downpipe, the downpipe of the manifold meets the catalytic at a different point underneath the engine bay. But anywho, so I have a little bit of scrap left over for the next car I have to conquer. And I have a spare mounting hook. The mounting points in the EXPs are pretty forgiving. Though I can kind of show it to you, but it goes into that rubber little hanger, and it's a pretty open D shape on the bottom. They were meant to be a pretty wide chunk of steel with a little bit of flange chaining down to fit in that. That way it resembles the D shape a little bit better. Like if you were to cut it to reveal a cross section, their little hanger that went through it was a kidney bean shape. But really, these hangers will fit almost anything. Down there, if you noticed earlier, my stock hanger for that S area, it's actually a straight piece of round steel, and then right at my fingertip, it hooks down about 1/4 of an inch. So it's just barely enough to stay inside its pocket. But that's what the factory did. It was enough to work. But my point is, these rubber hangers are very accommodating. They'll fit pretty much anything you can stick inside of them. You just gotta pay attention. If yours are worn out, it's very possible that any of these shapes will just kind of on out, unless it's one of the stock ones where it's got that 1/4 inch of flange chaining down. Then it actually takes some effort to fight them out. And it's up to you. I recommend putting grease on these if they're going to be kind of snug, whether it's this shape or any others. Any of those metal hangers or hanging rods going into these rubber bushings, coat one of the two pieces in some grease before you stick it in if it's going to be snug. Otherwise, if it's going to be fairly loose, leave it as is. Do yourself a favor. You don't want that coming out on accident. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. Like I said, keep an eye out in the description. I'll try over time. I'll measure up the cavity of the muffler area. That way, you can have a better way of finding something to fit these. Like for instance, the first gen Honda CR-Vs, they have a dual tip muffler that comes in from one side. Granted, it's all the way far right on the passenger side, but I bet you could flip it over and it would fit the space just fine if you can find those. But there's other things that may work, and that's why I'll leave you with some dimensions of the overall opening. And yeah, as I run across more mufflers that fit this area, I'll be sure to put their part numbers in the description so you can get hold of them easier.